The title of today's class is The Best Way to Deal with Death, and the subtitle is The Best Way to Live. The best way to deal with death, and the subtitle is The Best Way to Live. I have to admit that I was hesitant to give this class because I hadn't dealt with certain issues of my own death. But I have now. And in fact, just recently came into deeper understandings where it was internalized in my heart so that I could give this without being spooked. So I have something very valuable to share with you. In order to live strongly, you have to overcome your fear of your death. In order to live strongly, you really have to overcome the fear of your loved one's death, was the loved one being your spouse or your children. Certainly, the death of our children is probably the worst, one of the toughest issues that anybody can face in life, having to bury a child. You know, a child burying a father, a child burying a mother is more natural order of things. But God forbid any of you listening have to bury a child, or God forbid that I should have to bury a child. The loss is there. So even though I'm going to talk about it in a really positive way, I definitely want to talk first about the loss. In fact, in terms of, it's natural for people to fear their own demise, to have some worries about it, especially if a person's not sure if they go on as eternal souls. So there's really two approaches we're going to talk. For those who believe that we are eternal souls, in which case then there's a different spiritual, philosophical base to talk about. And then those who think, well, this is it. There is no other life other than the physical life. When we're gone, that's it. And we're going to talk about the different ways of gaining power from the event, because ultimately what we're going to be doing is talking about how death, or the prospect of death, will make us stronger. This is the key. Right now, the prospect of death weakens people, and certainly the passing away that has already happened of loved ones can tend to weaken people. I've gone through the death. First, I'll talk about it from a personal point of view. When my father passed, that was the biggest loss of my life. And I wrote a book called Upon My Father's Passing, talking about that. It was the biggest loss of my life. And I used to have a fear of flying. And so when I found out he died that night, I jumped on a plane, headed out to Toronto where he was being buried. And I didn't care if the plane crashed. I thought, well, if it crashes, I'll be with Dad. So, and I haven't feared flying ever since, even though I really want to live. One benefit that came to me from my father's passing is I got over my fear of flying. I didn't care. And then when we were burying Dad and we had him and he was in the casket, I asked everybody to leave the room. I wanted to be alone with his corpse. When I was alone with his corpse, I broke down. I sobbed from my whole being, just sobbed. And as I looked at why I sobbed, it was this. That crying just came from way down deep. And I couldn't have done it if anybody was around. I definitely would not have wept that at all. In fact, I don't think anyone ever saw me weep after that. That was it. It all came out then. And when I looked really into what I was weeping about, it had to do, I always appreciated my father, always admired my father, always respected my father, and always appreciated the beauty of his life. But I more profoundly appreciated the beauty of his life when he passed away. So I wept for the beauty of his life that I didn't as fully perceive as I did then upon his passing. I wept for the beauty of his life that I could not as deeply perceive as when he passed away. It was so profound a weeping. I saw the exquisiteness, the poignancy, the beauty of my father's life. But I could not see it as deeply, and I don't see it as deeply now. As, over 28 years later, I don't see it as deeply. But at that moment, it was exquisite. I felt it so sharply, so real, that the sobbing came from way down deep. Very profound weeping. My whole being sobbed. So in one sense, there was the loss. My father was my strength on this earth. He was the one I turned to anytime I needed help. Dad was there. His presence strengthened me while he was gone. So that was a loss. But the gain was I had to stand on my own 2 feet.